Hi, everyone. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us so bright and early. My name is Holly, and I'm the editor of International Airport Review. On behalf of my team and CETA, our sponsors for today, I'd like to thank you all for attending this breakfast briefing on biometrics and the future of travel beyond the airport. This is a great future-looking topic, and as you can see, we have a great lineup of speakers today and plenty to get through, so I will keep things very short. The discussion for today is led by Annette Steenbergen. Annette is an independent advisor on digital identity and travel. Annette does have her own questions for the panel, but there will be some time for you to pose your own questions, so please do keep them to the end. But that's all from me. Annette, I will hand over to you, and the floor is yours.
Sorry for that. Thank you so much, Holly. Sorry for starting. I was just a bit... yes, I better do this. Okay, I will sort that in a bit. Yeah, still... Okay, there's still something here, but that broke. Sorry. Thanks, Holly. Let me now, without further ado, about any technology regarding audio, talk about other, much more interesting stuff. First, let me introduce to you the panel, which is what I wanted to say, a perfect lineup of a provider, an airport, an airline, and a regulator. And if we talk about this topic, this is exactly the four people we need to have there. First of all, CETA's Vice President, Border Management and Digital Travel, Jeremy Springer. Then we have from Lufthansa Utebart. She's a Senior Manager, Ground and Product Development and Customer Experience. From the EU Commission DG Home, we have Mikko Hakarainen, who is Team Leader, Document Security and Identity Management. And last but not least, we have Jens Sanner from Fraport, who is the Program Head, Digital Transformation and Passenger Processes. So, the right people for the right topic, I should say. Talk about all these developments, and we're looking at the future, is the name of the breakfast meeting. I wanted to ask Jeremy to first set the scene for us. What is this future? What is the vision that you see on the topic of biometrics and travel, and especially this beyond the airport?
Thank you, Annette, and hopefully you can all hear me okay at the back. Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be part of this panel discussion today because I feel we're at a really exciting point for our industry. The way we travel, where we all travel in the future, is changing. And if I may, I'd like you to imagine a world where you can travel from anywhere to everywhere without ever needing a physical travel document. Where you can arrive at the airport, drop off your bag, go through security and board your flight purely using your face. And when you arrive at your destination, you can walk across the border without needing to queue at immigration, and then extend that seamless journey to your hotel and the destination event that you're hopefully traveling for. Now that concept, that vision of digital travel or the seamless journey is something that, as an industry, we've all been talking about for many years. But we're now at a point where it's become a reality. And a lot of that actually is being driven by the traveller, the passenger. They're now demanding that seamless experience that I've just spoken about. And CETA actually does a passenger survey each year. And as part of that survey, over the last few years, actually, we're hearing from the passenger that they are now very comfortable with a biometrically enabled digital identity if it's going to improve their traveller experience. So over 7 out of 10 passengers feel that way. So the industry, and we've all been part of it, and you'll hear some great stories, great case studies today around what the industry's been doing over the last few years in this area. But a lot of that has been looking at specific areas of that journey. So looking at how we biometrically enable the airport. And CETA been very proud to be involved in over 40 implementations of biometric solutions around the world at airports. But in order to deliver that whole end-to-end experience, we're needing to actually bring together sort of three core technology areas that we see. And the first is something called the Digital Travel Credential, or the DTC. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the DTC yet, in effect it's a digital version of your e-passport, but held in an electronic form on a device. So it could be on the mobile wallet or with the wallet of your mobile phone. And importantly, it's an ICAO standard. It can be authenticated against the ICAO Public Key Directory, and therefore it's a trusted document in the same way an e-passport is today. And therefore it's trusted by governments, and it can be trusted by the industry in terms of a sort of an anchor identity that we can all sort of base a digital identity and that seamless experience on. So we'll touch on the DTC, I'm sure, as part of the discussion. The second key technology that we're seeing evolving is around decentralized identities or verifiable credentials. And this is a way of being able to use those identities, but in a very secure and privacy-preserving way. So the passenger is in control of their data and who they share it with. And those identities can be verified by the different stakeholders, whether it's an airline, an airport, a hotel, in a way without needing to go back to some central database holding all of our private information, personal data. And therefore it's a key technology to enable that data privacy element of this journey, and also to enable and support the integration with all the different stakeholders in a very simple way. And this is where things like IATA 1ID come in, and things like the European digital wallet that, again, I'm sure we'll touch on as part of this. The third technology area is the biometrics itself. Now, biometric technology is new. We've been using it for many years in different purposes. Certainly as part of travel, we've been using it at the border for well over 10 years in terms of automated border control type solutions. And as I mentioned, we've now been really over the last few years really looking at how we can adopt it at pace at the airport. But the key development really over the last 10 years that we've been going through is the biometric technology itself has really evolved to a very high standard. So the ability to recognise, particularly facial biometrics, is significantly improved over the last 10 years. And we're now at a point where really it's government grade biometrics in order to enable that end-to-end journey. So really it's the combination of those sort of three things that I think we'll touch on as part of the debate that is going to enable this end-to-end journey and hopefully deliver on that vision of the seamless journey that we've all been talking about. So hopefully, Annette, that's been a useful summary.
Super useful, because this is exactly what it's all about. And what will help us, these developments will help us bring it all to fruition very soon. And I'm very interested to hear from our other panelists what they're, because I know you're working on exactly these kinds of developments. So could you please, Ute, maybe start and explain what Lufthansa is doing in a few minutes working towards this vision?
Yeah, good morning. Happy to be here. So I will start. We are working on the third part of your vision, on the biometrics topic. So biometric identification at the airport. We introduced it in 2020. It was not a good time to introduce it, yeah, you all know, but we stepped forward and we increased the numbers of touch points. We have 4 airports where biometric identification is running, and together with Fraport, we now start the next step. What we are learning is you are not alone with biometric identification or with your biometric product. You need to have cooperations, that it's seamless for the customer, regardless which airport he is departing. You should not think about, at this airport I need this program, at this airport I need that program. So I have one program and I can use it at the airports. This is now the next level we are forcing to. And what we are also working on in small steps, regarding the legislation, everything, is the vision part 2 and part 1. So I hope we can make this through, let's say, with a POC next year maybe, and then in routine maybe 2 years. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, I think you touched on an important topic, which is if we want to be interconnected, there has to be kind of a uniform process that everybody recognizes, not a different app or a different thing at every airport, yes. So go to Fraport then first, because that connects to what Ute was saying, sure.
Well, good morning and thank you all for coming at that time in the morning. Well, it's on. It's on. It's working. Do you hear me or not?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Good. Thank you for coming early in the morning. As an airport, we are interconnected with an airline. So if an airline offers biometric and there's no airport infrastructure which is suiting it, it won't work. An airport can provide infrastructure like biometrics, but it won't work with the airline are not responding. So we are in a complete ecosystem depending on each other and working together on this subject moving forward. So in 2020, we started together with Lufthansa, perfect new solution at that time, Star Biometric Hub, and moved on and through the pandemic, through all the crises, at the recovery, and now we're hitting the next stage. And yes, we are providing the infrastructure for the new stage, because at the end of the day, we do see definitely a change of a complete DNA of a terminal setting at the end of the day. If we're coming to Jeremy's vision of part 2 and part 1, and eventually it will change the complete DNA setting of an airport, which at the end of the day will benefit again Lufthansa, because it will have a whole new setting for an airline operation, because the terminal setting and the tarmac setting will be eventually touched and changed.
Yeah. Oh, and thanks Jens. Then Miko, because without a regulator, none of this is possible. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, in the Commission we rarely do anything concrete. We write papers, we write policies and laws, and that's what we've been preparing to do now for the last, let's say, 2 years or so. Preparing our policy on the digitalisation of travel documents, essentially with a view to adopting legal rules across Europe on this aspect. So we carried out an impact assessment looking at the various options. Let's be very blunt and summarise it. We came down to using the ICAO DTC. It has the trust that border guards want, that authorities want for the official purposes of carrying out border checks. And in the context of this impact assessment, we also gauged the public opinion on it. Results weren't great, but I've got to say it was only 1 or 2 countries that were among the highest respondents, and we couldn't rule out a campaign. It was very similar negative feedback. So I was actually very happy and grateful that we had the, let's say, more balanced outcomes of the questionnaires done by IATA and CETA. And also we did a separate questionnaire survey called an EU barometer survey, in which we had 27,000 responses on one-to-one interviews with citizens of Europe. And actually the responses were, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. So actually people do look forward to having digital travel credentials for the crossing of external borders, for boarding a plane, etc. So we've been working on this policy now for about 2 years. I can't give you an exact date when we will adopt this legal proposal. It's coming soon, matter of weeks or max months, but still this year very much. What essentially we aim to do is establish a harmonised standard for digital travel documents, hooking it to the ICAO DTC Type 1. So Jeremy, hold your horses, it's not going to be seamless and only face in the next couple of years. We will have an intermittent period where we do both physical and digital, but still for the benefit of the whole ecosystem. Secondly, enable border guards to actually use these digital travel documents in doing the border checks. Thirdly, creating opportunities outside the border, or let's say travel domain. So once this is an official standard, member states, third-party relying parties can actually start integrating the DTC into their workflows, whether it's managing business relations of an airline or checking proof of age when buying a beer. And also creating then the IT infrastructure that will enable all this. So hooking up with the links with the digital identity wallets and whatever needs to be added on top of that to ensure that people can send and receive DTCs.
So DTC is pretty much at the central of digital travel. with the wallets, etc., to come. But what's the business case? Why are you investing in this? There is a great demand, you already said. CETA did the survey. The Eurobarometer even says it. The IATA's passenger survey every year increases the number. But what is the business case? That's what it boils down to in the end. Could you briefly, all four of you, Jeremy, could you start?
Yeah, I think first of all we've got to probably put the business case in the wider context. We are in a world where we're expecting passenger numbers to double over the next 20 years. So how can we, as an industry, accommodate those extra passengers, that extra demand within our existing infrastructure? And yes, there will be new infrastructure, but it's not going to meet up with that overall demand. So we've really got to think through how the business case needs to operate at a global level. We also need to look at the business case from those different stakeholders' perspectives, because individually, if an airline looks at their business case in isolation, we're going to struggle to ever get to this point. Again, we've got to look at it as a whole, looking at the capability, the business case for all of those different stakeholders. A couple of key things for me, and absolutely I'll pass on some of the details really to my colleagues. From a passenger point of view, first of all and foremost, it does come down to that passenger demand. They want to be able to use this capability. So, I mean, there's a clear business case there from a passenger point of view. But equally, they only want it if they can ensure that their data, their identity is managed in a privacy-preserving way. So, the business case has to accommodate those particular demands of the traveller from that point of view. From an airline point of view, it enables the airline, hopefully, to offer a differentiated service in some way. But on top of that, there is a big area around reducing fraud, around reducing government fines, because again, if they're providing incorrect information, inaccurate information to governments, then there is a whole issue around fines, and this should hopefully address that data quality sort of issue related to that. The cost of inadmissibles for an airline, if they try and enter into a country, is significant. I mean, on average, it ranges from anywhere between $3,500 to $20,000 for sort of repatriating an inadmissible trying to enter the country. And obviously there's a whole host of operational efficiencies for the airline. And I'm sure when we come onto the airport, we'll hear about those operational opportunities as well. And from a government point of view, where a lot of my focus is, the key thing is around pre-clearance from a business case point of view. It is around making sure that the government is able to pre-clear travellers before they even start their journey. That lowers the security risk. It enables us to provide, fly in a very safe way. But equally, it enables national prosperity. If passengers are keen to come to their country because it's easy to travel, that's going to increase tourism, it's going to increase trade, and therefore national prosperity is a massive business case for governments around the world.
That's a very clear picture. Who would like to add to that?
So I would like to add this from an airline perspective, but first from a customer perspective. So what is the business case for the customer? The business case for the customer is not, you're going to an airport, what is my horrible view? I have to queue up. And I don't have to queue up once, I have to queue up twice, triple. A lot of bring and the back, queue up at the security, queue up at the document check, queue up again at the second document check, queue up at the boarding. With the biometric identification combined with the DTC, where I could verify my digital passport, that is a passport, and I could verify my ID check at home or somewhere at a hotel, relaxed, at biometric identification. I can only pass through. So for customer benefit would be just walk through experience. There is no money behind, but it's much more relaxing and much less stressful than if I have behind, I will be there a queue at the security or from an airline perspective, if we have a digital control of the travel document or of the ID check, we will have less manual checkpoints at the airport. So it's also, if we save money over there.
Exactly.
And what you say, we to have the verified documents, less penalty for returning passengers.
This means you need the airport.
We need the airport, definitely. We need all airports.
Well, and from an airport perspective, looking at what you just heard, the two previous speakers actually adds into our space, because as you know, in Western Hemispheres, we're not going to build new airport. We have to live in the concrete space, which we are currently having. And the increase, like Jeremy just mentioned, hey, it's going through the roof, we need to use that in the environment. So we can do this only with the digitalization of the process, which means reducing the friction for our customers and enabling that space to transform that to better turnaround times for airlines, quicker turnarounds, quicker boarding time, quicker processes, so the passenger can flow through much more faster, and we get this thing done rather than having one stop, another stop, and another stop, and another checkpoint set up. We just mentioned on Monday morning, like, oh, 3,000 passengers waiting at a US check point. Yeah, waiting 3,000 passengers in the morning, yeah, you can imagine how the queue is. So get rid of that, get that space free, and use it for an alternate process. It's much better than that. So that's the business case at the end of the day for an airport, because we can turn around and can use the space much more efficient together in a cooperation, and we get the planes faster out, as well as turnaround times reduced.
It's a no-brainer, basically, yeah. But we need regulations, because we're dealing with personal data, very sensitive data, biometrics. We're dealing with sharing data across stakeholders, across borders. So we have global regulations, regional, EU, which trickles down to national, of course. So, and there's so much happening, especially in the EU with the EU Digital Identity Wallet, and then we have the DTC. Nico, can you just paint the picture of what's going on right now to get us all up to speed?
Sure. And in addition to those, I mean, there's also the upcoming systems which you've heard of. Definitely the entry-exit system at ETIAS. We have also new rules on API coming up, which I believe will be of interest to you. Well, let's say the biggest thing, which also brings a link to the DTC here, would be the fact that carriers in the future would be required to collect API information in automated means. So of course that creates one clear use case for the DTC or any other kind of verifiable credential if it's based on a reliable source. So getting the necessary data that is needed from a travel document for API purposes directly from the chip of the travel document. Of course, that then raises other questions regarding what we spoke about earlier on data protection. If such third parties may have access to the chip data according to the national rules, applicable EU rules, etc. And maybe we should look into that and create a harmonized framework of the rules on that. The wallet was mentioned several times. It's the regulation on establishing the EIDAS 2.0, the new European Digital Identity Wallet, was agreed on some weeks ago. It will essentially, let's say, in my opinion, the main use case is kind of online transactions and sorry, the verification of identity in online transactions across Europe. Secondary use case will be the housing of different kind of attestations. It could be an e-prescription given in Germany, but you'd use it in Sweden, mobile driver's licenses, diplomas, you name it. And of course, that would be the natural house, the home for a DTC. And then we start thinking, okay, how can we store it there? How can we also ensure selective disclosure, which is one of the requirements of the wallet, that any attestation in the wallet shall cater for selective disclosure. And the more tech-savvy of you will probably know that the ICAO DTC definitely does not do that. So we've been also thinking in-house, how can we kind of, go a bit around the rules, I still have the ICAO DTC in the wallet. And one way that we'll be looking into is actually so passing it into several different blocks of data and having the entire package of DTC data in one wrapper. So then the authorities get their way, they get the whole package that they want, and then carriers, if they only want certain bits and blocks of the data, they can request that. So we need to be quite innovative when we think of solutions that cater for all the different technical requirements on the one hand, and the legal requirements, also security requirements posed on the kind of official side. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I know.
Yeah, it will. It's going to be a game changer because it's unlike the Apple or the Google wallet. This wallet, your identity is given to you by the government, so it means there is a high level of trust. And the offline use, it's going to be very different, but it will definitely help if the DTC issue is solved. It will definitely help travel and help you all. But how do you see these developments, and how does the regulation, of course, how will that impact the passenger experience? How can you, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think regulation is clearly something that is critical to how we execute on this vision. I think first of all, one of the challenges is that we live and we're in a global industry. So the regulations that might be in place in Europe might not equally be relevant in other parts of the world. They'll have their own regulations, their own requirements, and somehow we need to make sure that these solutions are interoperable. So interoperability of those different regulations and complying with those regulations in that way is going to be absolutely critical. Picking up your point about the traveller, the key one for the traveller, as we've mentioned a few times, is around data privacy and making sure that, as a citizen of a certain country, other countries are going to respect that data privacy in that way is equally important for us. So again, how we join up these regulations is really key. I think you're absolutely right around the digital travel credential. As a standard, it in effect is, as I said, a digital version of your passport. That's all it, I say that's all it is. It's a really key bit of technology, but it doesn't really support us around that data privacy thing. And I think you're absolutely right around selective disclosure. You need the ability for a government to be able to receive the whole of your DTC and everything that's contained in it. But yes, if I'm using it as a traveller to prove my eligibility to buy something at duty free, all the retailer needs to know is, they don't even need to know my date of birth, they just need to know I'm above a certain age. So the governance model of how this works is absolutely critical. And certainly our vision is that we need to have an industry-wide governance around how these solutions are going to work. So the regulations that we're seeing in each territory can be observed, and as an industry we can operate in effect as an ecosystem in a very controlled way that enables the passenger to have the experience they need whilst we're complying with the different regulations around the world. So for me, that governance is really key.
Yeah. I want to ask you, Jens, because we had a chat over coffee and you were quite adamant on the trust. So why do you say that?
The trust of the DTC or the EU wallet is actually basically the thing what Jeremy just mentioned. At the end of the day, it comes around my EU wallet, my digital identity in the EU wallet, will it be accepted by the US government? And vice versa. It's just a trusted issue on the wallet issue, and this negotiation needs to be started, and I heard the negotiation started and is working, but this is very vital. Otherwise, we have a nice wallet there, but okay, I'm using it for some online things, and for traveling, where actually there's a huge benefit for all of us in it, we can't use it. So it's like a nice thing with a passport where I can, I have like a Ferrari and I have a smart engine inside of it. it's no use. So we need to look into the trustability of that and get the trust around between the countries, between EU and EU member states, as well as with all the bilateral agreements, to move that into the next stage, and then really kicks in the benefit for the customer. And sorry to jump in quickly into that issue, is we love to over-engineer a lot of things. KISS, keep it simple and stupid for our customers. You're laughing, but this is the simple thing. If you over-engineer it, if you make it too complicated, the customer will be quickly, and this is what lessons learned from the first TTC trials is, it's too complicated to do, I jump out, why should I give up? And that's another thing.
No, exactly. The UX, the interface is something simple but really crucial in this respect. I must say that a lot of things are still under development, like how the DTC and the wallet will go hand in hand. And I'm happy to hear that Amiga says they're working hard on a proposal. And I know there's large scale pilots currently underway in Europe also on travel to work on that. On the travel use case. But I saw Uto already nodding, because the airline, of course, will have to take that data and have to deal with that data.
Yeah, we as an airline, so normally we are not interested in passport data, because to fly passengers it's not needed to have the passport data. We are obliged to get the passport data for the destination country. And if I put the data out of a digital wallet, it's enough if I just gather data I need. If you have a manual check, you show me your passport, I immediately check your birthday. So that's an information normally I should not know, and you don't want to give this information to me. And I think this is the advantage of the digital wallet and the DTC. You just deliver the data which is needed for your travel. And overall, yeah, as Jens mentioned, interoperability is the magic word for everything. So if we can take out the information out of the digital wallet and then we send it to the US and they will be happy. But at the end, you need your physical passport when you enter United States. And to keep this, you need then the trust and the interoperability. At first it would help us to take just the information out of the digital wallet and just the information we need to know. But we need not to know everything. But for us it is then important to have, this is a trusted passport and we don't have to see it again at the airport.
Exactly. And this will be new, right, Nico? You will actually be able to oblige with the data minimization standards. Could you briefly explain how that works, just briefly with the selective disclosure and zero knowledge proof, maybe? How that, or just the selective disclosure that you just share part of it. Not everything is allowed to be known, like Uta says. Your date of birth, they're not allowed to register it even.
If I'm completely honest, I'm not even necessarily convinced that the DTC is the best credential if you want to enable selective disclosure. There might be other verifiable credentials which are better suited for that purpose. But when it comes to the, let's say, the official border check use case where the authorities need to inspect your passports, it's going to be the whole package.
Yeah.
Then there are the additional use cases. Personally, I can't think of many where you wouldn't need, for example, age, or maybe going into a bar or buying a beer would be the only use case comes to my mind. But is our expectation really that high when we go digital that it's going to cater for data minimization in all spheres of life? And yes, you're renting a car, they don't need to know if you're 23, it's enough that they know you're above 21, but come on. Is it really realistic to expect that we can cater for this level of selective disclosure in all the different use cases? I don't know. Is it necessary?
Technology can provide it, I'm sure. And I think it's a bit of a mentality change that right now we give a document, we give everything, and maybe in the future we realise we can do with less. Jeremy? Yeah?
Yeah, I think this point around selective disclosure is really important, and Yeah, the DTC is not going to enable that. That's going to be enabled with that second bit of the vision I spoke about around the verifiable credential, the decentralized identity network. That's going to, those solutions need to be able to enable selective disclosure. In reality, the DTC is held within that verifiable credential. But the verifiable credential technology is the piece that's going to enable, and the governance sitting around that verifiable credential around what information can be shared with what type of organisation. And as I mentioned, the governance model that sits within that verifiable credential ecosystem is going to support that sort of approach. And what we need as an industry is an ecosystem that, in effect, enables us to work with any wallet, because it could be used in any jurisdiction around the world. It could be used for any type of digital identity, so it could be the digital travel credential, equally it could be a driving license, it could be any other form of identity that is valid for travel. It also needs to be able to cater for other types of credentials. So, for example, in the future, I'm sure many of you are aware of the IATA One Order standards and principles. So in that context, we also need to be able to hold information related to different orders that might be applicable. So, for example, a hotel voucher. If your flight is disrupted, then you can automatically issue a meal voucher for people stranded at the airport, or whatever it might well be. Any form of credential can be offered within that sort of way, but managed within that ecosystem for travel. And for us, that's really key. So that's sort of the vision that we have for the overall travel industry.
And it's a vision, and we'll see happen. But before we get there, and we'll get into questions, from all four of you, very quickly, you have learnings from what you've worked on before, POCs, pilots, and you see where it's going in the future. What are your learnings and what are your recommendations? Very briefly. Yes, let's start with you.
Learnings is, as I'm always saying, get your legal teams as quickly as possible on board. GDPR discussions is quite crucial, and it's usually quite underestimated by everyone. Technology-wise, it's everything there. It's quickly done. It's no rocket science. But lessons learned in the preparations of an airport, get your legal teams in as early as possible, because that's the longest way on everything. Technically, you're done within, I look at Forest, within weeks, but legal teams, it can take really long hassle time. But eventually, lessons learned. Yes, it's a good way to improve. Yes, it's very important to have a partner, like here, Ute sitting there. It's very important, very crucial to have partners on board. Sita, Ute, Fraport, yes, partnering and moving forward. Otherwise, alone in this planet, you will not survive.
That's the truth. Nico.
So we did EU-funded pilot projects on the use of DTCs for external border check purposes in 3 member states, Finland, Croatia and the Netherlands. I think the tentative results from those pilots that just finished a few weeks ago is, first of all, that it works. It's incredibly quick. For example, in the Finnish pilots, I think the average border crossing, border check process for an EU national went down from 30-ish seconds to 8 seconds using a DTC. That's pretty, impressive. And it builds up the more people, according to the uptake of DTCs.
Yes.
The border guards were happy. It really works. They do get the data in advance. They carry out the checks. They have more time to plan their resources accordingly and reduce bottlenecks when you get one of those big flights from Istanbul with a lot of different passports to check. Data protection, like mentioned by Jens, yes, absolutely, get your legal teams together. Although we have GDPR in the EU, it seems like we have 27 different GDPRs, so we should probably discuss more amongst ourselves as well. Some questions for the future. When we go from a pilot mode with 100 or 500 passengers into full production mode, how do we integrate the use of DTCs in the existing space? Like mentioned, there's not much room to expand airports, so we need to think about that. Transmission, also we spoke about how do you ensure third countries, non-European countries are in on it. And there's also the technical question of in what kind of standard do we actually transmit the DTC? This is not harmonised. On a positive note, we at the EU are looking at a next round of pilot projects, and some of these questions should definitely be piloted or even standardised during those, so we're looking forward to continuing the good cooperation with member states, with different service providers, producers, and also ISO and ICAO. Thanks.
Lots to look forward to. Ute.
Yeah, I can agree to Jens and to integrate legal and data protection authority as early as possible. Force data protection authorities that they will read your papers and then come up then when you are ready to start with your pilot. And this is very important. Very important is to have the partners on your side. You cannot do this alone. So you need the airports, Frankfurt, Fraport, but I'm also looking to my Munich colleagues, and you have to go this way together. But what I think, what is also necessary for airports and airlines, to work together with governments, to try to have some influence on them, to work together with the EU, to speak, to point out your questions, your challenges, your needs, that they know what is going on. So I think this is very important. That's what I recognize right now, how important legal support is to have regulations or something like this. And yeah, that was my learning for the last 3 years. I worked with biometrics identification.
Jeremy, last one for you.
Okay, I agree with all my fellow panelists. I think for me, collaboration and working together is really critical. We're doing different projects around the world. At the moment, we're in the midst of a project with the Arab Air Carriers Organisation, with 3 of the big carriers in the Middle East, and it's absolutely critical that we're joining up the airline. A lot of the focus is the airline, but we need to join up the airports and critically the government. So that collaboration is really essential. What we found in some of the projects that we've been doing, a great example is Aruba. We've done an end-to-end project in Aruba, enabling it, everything from applying entry into the country all the way through to accessing activities in country. And one of the lessons we've learned there, one of the things we found, is actually this new technology around verifiable credentials is easy to integrate. So it's a much easier to integrate technology than others. But there is still a very complex IT environment that we're working in. Airlines, airports, we've all got complex IT systems. So that collaboration also needs to extend to all of the different service providers that are supporting those airlines, airports across the piece. So, collaboration is key.
Collaboration is always key, and that's a perfect last word, because that's what it's all about. Without it, nothing happens. Exactly. Thanks all. We'll take some questions, and I want to ask you to please then raise your hand, of course, state your name and who you would like the question to be answered by.
Hi, good morning. My name is Rocio Gutierrez. I work for INECO, Spanish public company, engineering company. I do have 3 quick, maybe it's food for thought rather than a question. And feel free to answer if you have an answer, otherwise it's just for everybody to think about it. First, how is the industry dealing with program of obsolescence? 2012 book, Politics at the Airport, was already stating how the world changed in 2001 with the implementation of security measures worldwide. And these security measures were implemented worldwide, but in 2024, every time I cross a security border, every single, even at the same airport, the way it's applied, it's completely different. Either you remove your shoes, either you take your laptop, and it definitely depends on the technology you're using. Second question, I think we are, or comment, we're being way too self-centered. we're looking at European Union as the way of implementation, or we can look at FAA or CARIBAC. But what about the other regions? Because ultimately, aviation, it's about connecting regions, not only those who have agreed on certain aspects. So it's really difficult to deal with countries which have not the money to invest in these technologies, or they are already way behind of further technologies that all of the other airports have implemented. So how do you actually deal with that relationship with these airports? And of course, how do you deal with that obsolescence? Many airports invested maybe 5-10 years ago on this rotating device in order to check if the liquids were explosives or not. Nobody's using this technology anymore. And that was supposed to help to ease the pass-through through security, for example. So how is this technology being developed? How are airports deciding what technology will be going further? ABT passports were really long to implement, but now they are being implemented a lot.
And who would you like to answer this question?
It's as I said first, it's a food for thought. If anybody wants to answer, it's great. It's just a lot of questions that came to my mind while they were talking.
Yeah, Jeremy?
So obviously there's a lot in there in your
Yeah,
question.
I know.
No, and really good questions. One of the key things that digital identities are going to give us all is a lot more trust around that passenger. We can prove the identity of that individual before they even start their journey. So, and that really joins neatly into where a lot of the industry is looking at. A lot of your questions were around aviation security, around that security touch point. And what we've been looking at there is more around differentiated security. So if we know who you are, and we've already know before you even start your journey, before you arrive at the airport, your identity, we've risk assessed you to a level that we know you're a trusted traveller, and therefore you don't need to go through the same level of security checks as maybe somebody you know less about. And therefore you can apply some differentiated aviation security in that way using this technology. And it is about that data. It's really about better understanding the passenger and who is a potential risk and who isn't. So that was the key bit I was going to add. I don't know if anyone else has got anything.
Maybe just on one point, you mentioned how to ensure that countries are not left behind. Well, I work for the EU, but I'll use this opportunity to market ICAO. And they have one working group called the Implementation Capacity Building Working Group, or ICBWG. And within that working group, we try to actually implement one of the ICAO principles of no country left behind. So organising different kinds of capacity building events, meetings in the regions with less developed countries, less developed infrastructure, and try to make sure that they do keep up. Also by ensuring that some of the standards, for example, that there was a long discussion whether we should or shouldn't make e-passports mandatory, so biometric passports. And in the end, at least according to where the discussion is now going, is that's not. It doesn't make sense for, let's say, especially small island states with X thousand persons putting up the infrastructure for having PKIs, e-gates, everything is just not worth it. So we do keep this in mind, but of course, and then there's obviously a lot of regional and bilateral cooperation between more and less developed countries to help build capacities.
Yes. Could you maybe stand so
Oh
everybody
yeah, hi. Hi, Chloe Greenbank with Regional Gateway magazine. The question I have is really around the passengers and where the responsibility lies in terms of informing them of what they need to do and making sure that they're up to speed on what will be required from them when the time comes.
Great question. And who should answer it?
Anyone who wants to step forward.
Dealing with the passenger directly?
Yeah.
Airline?
Communicate.
Hotel?
Yeah, we deal with the passenger capacity. Normally we have customer communication, we explaining our process, and we will point out what will be the advantages using this form or not, and that's where we try to explain how is the process, so in live description how you can pass to the gate seamless. So, and the other partner is then the airport, that's like Frankfurt. They will have to write the user story coming to Frankfurt Airport. Here is your way, with no standing in line, or like you do it with your marketing company, and to inform them. But what is also important, and what gives them the trust, is if from, let's say, not from government, but from, from authority sides also came the influence, say, you can use this way because you can trust it, it's from us, it's from government, it's from authorities, from EU, so that they are confident using the new services or DTC or everything.
Important precondition.
Well, actually, it's a cooperation at the end of the day. The first touch to the customer is the airline, and then eventually everyone else links into that and just communicates, hey, listen, this is how you need to do that. I just came back recently, a few days ago, from holidays, and I looked at the webpage from the arriving and departing country of my destination and looked into the website. They said, oh, you need to da-da-da-da-da, and you're set to go. So at the end of the day, it's a cooperation and a link between all the stakeholders here sitting saying, like, hey, this is how we are going to do that. The airline at the first touch point, then comes the airport, and in between we have the authorities for departing and arriving. So everyone links in and has this communication chain eventually set up and working into this process. And this is how we do it even today. So it's nothing like brand new. It's something we have in the common sense and works currently quite well.
It's an ecosystem. It's not siloed. Everything is interlinked. Yeah, and there's a lady who had her hand up for quite a while. Sorry, blue lady. Yes. And yes.
Hi, Annette.
Hi. Good morning. Steve, right? Yes.
Yeah. Hi. It's a long way back here. Hi, Steve Grant from Entrust in Ottawa. My question's for Miko. Miko, thanks for the plug on the work of the ICBWG. I'm also a member. I've been a member for several years, and it's important work, especially the No Country Left Behind work. Interesting comments from you about the ICAO DTC and what the Commission is doing or thinking about doing with it. And I'm just wondering how you reconcile the DTC with the impending or pending implementation of the European entry-exit system, which doesn't make any use of a DTC. It seems to me that it's a big leap that the Commission would be making, or the EU would be making, a positive one. But what do you see in terms of the complexities and the challenges of making a shift away from a system that's just about to be deployed, which doesn't use the DTC? Thanks.
No heckling, Steve. But it's a good question, and had we been smarter, the DTC would have been done 5 years ago, so it would have been ready for introduction at the same time as entry into operation of the entry-exit system. It wasn't, so it isn't, so that's where we are. We do see absolutely the clear links between an ICAO DTC and the entry-exit system. As you know, we do expect quite a bit of build-up in airport queues for first-time arrivals after the entry into operation of the entry-exit system. Non-Europeans will be enrolling their data, answering questions, giving their passport details, facial image, fingerprints. A lot of that can be upstreamed, including, for example, the capture of the facial image, enrollment of biographic data. How to do it? Well, we are now currently working on a mobile solution on a pilot project basis, which would allow non-Europeans to pre-enroll certain data for the entry-exit system. In the longer term, once we have this kind of DTC scheme up and running, we intend to have one single mobile application, kind of a one-stop shop. So everything you need to do when it comes to coming into Europe, going out of Europe, whether you're a European or non-European, you can use this one application for informing the authorities about your intentions of coming and going, for these advanced checks, for pre-enrolling data, for ensuring a smoother transit through the airport or whatever kind of transport hub you're going through. But yeah, we should have been there earlier. Absolutely correct.
Thank you, Nico.
Yes.
I'll be really quick. Sarah, thank you very much. I've learned a lot from this discussion this morning, so thank you very much. 2 questions. Are we making ourselves very susceptible for cyber attacks by implementing this technology? And the second question is, thank God everyone in this room is under 35, but will we be able to travel when we get older? I mean, is this technology segmenting, you know, the young and the tech savvy from the elder group? I mean, will we all be able to use this, do you think, in the future, all generations, despite any age?
This is about the user experience, the interface, yeah.
So, for my person, I would say, maybe I'm a bit elder person, but I still will use DTC, and I think I can face it. So, yeah, I think it's also could also be available, or other persons or seniors can use the service and will understand this. When I see my mother-in-law, she's about 20 years older than I, and she's using the iPhone and WhatsApp and everything, and if you explain it to her, she will use also DTC. That will be no problem, but there will be people younger than me, and they won't use it. So I think it's not the question of age, it's the question of you want it or you want it not. So that's what.
Jeremy, quickly want to add to that?
Very quickly, first of all, we always need to be able to manage exceptions. So, you know, not everyone is going to have an e-passport or a DTC, and it's going to take a very long time for us to actually get there with 100% compliance. So, you know, I think it is something we obviously need to consider, but I completely agree that the pilots we've done don't necessarily differentiate, you know, an issue by age. On the issue of cyber, very quickly, what we're really focused on, clearly cybersecurity is absolutely paramount to what we have to do as an industry. We have to be very, very aware of that. The verifiable credential technology we're talking about here is secure, and it's equally, you know, we're holding the information ourselves on our own personal devices. We're not holding personal data on lots of databases around the world. You know, every stakeholder holding, you know, your own personal data. So the approach we're taking should minimize that cyber threat. You know, we're not working in a world where, you know, our data is everywhere. So, you know, we're putting the passenger in control. But clearly we need to be very, very aware of the threat from cyber.
I like that. We put the passenger in control. That's a great last quote to round up with. I think we had a... Oh, can we do one more question?
Yeah.
Yes?
If I make it quick.
Yes. So get the mic. Sorry. Yes, gentleman over here.
Massimiliano works. Yeah. Okay. Massimiliano Basita. I think we all agree that we are now in this room called to a higher duty and mandate to pave the way for the future of travel. But in this diverse ecosystem that we face today, okay, we talked about the airports, airlines, authorities, providers, and ultimately governments, right? What do you see, your personal perspective, who wants to answer that, as a key action to get this over the line and to use a Gartner sentence to get it on the plateau of maturity, to get DTC widely adopted beyond the POC that we are already planning? What you see, your personal perspective, as a key element of priority, especially you know, facing the challenges of getting this standardized and adopted by the governments.
Who would like to take that excellent question?
As a regulator, I would say the first step is getting the regulations in place, getting the policies in place that actually enable all the different stakeholders in the ecosystem to benefit from the use of DTCs. And then it's up to you and you to make sure that the things are in place. So that's my opinion.
So my opinion is also that then the governments will support these wallets to to the people who should use it. And so the need is then that we as an airline or the airlines and airports, we offer the possibility that they can use it. So what will be a nice, beautiful wallet, and your DTC is inside, and no one offers you the opportunity to use something out of this. I want to use it, and no, I can't. So we are working on the opportunity, and we make our thoughts how we can integrate this in the check-in process and how it would be seamless. But if there is no one who will use the wallet, no sense. On the other side, if the customers are there having the wallet, but there is no opportunity to use it, no sense. So we need both. So we need a bit of support from the government that the people are ready to use it and willing to use it, and then from the other side, we need to be ready with the functionality that they have the ability to use it. Jens?
And I would like to add in, we do need from everyone the education of the citizens to use the self-sovereign identity in a proper manner. It's not anymore a paper which I have. I have something on my smartphone. How do I use it properly? It's the government. Mika gives that, or the EU gives that to the citizen. It's not a EU tool. You are now the data owner. How do you use that? So it's not only us working on it, but it's also at the end of the society telling also on the swarm technology, swarm intelligence, how to use that in a proper manner, because otherwise people are like, oh, what do? I just do everything, whatever? No, it's like, you're the data owner suddenly, so you are the one, and you're self-sovereign. That's a change for a lot of people that are just, oh, I have a password here, and who cares? I just give a password to Ute and do my check-in. Who do I care? Suddenly, no, it's your data. What do I give? And disclosure. What is the thing? So it's a really complex thing, Max, which you just mentioned, and it's at the end of the day from all of us sharing and moving that forward and bringing that across the line. And, sorry Max, we have to get, for this moment, out of our current column. Everyone thinks in their business, commercial way, oh, I have to do this, and this is, oh, I cannot talk to Ute because she's whatever, or no, we have to get as an industry over that and to move forward as an industry, and not, oh, I'm Amsterdam, this is Frankfurt, this is Heathrow, we cannot share. No, only together we are going to move that into the next phase. Otherwise, it's going to be failure.
Exactly. Jeremy?
Just very quickly, I would say we're all in a digital world now, and with that, things happen much faster. We're seeing that. We're no longer in a space where we would run a pilot for 6 months or 9 months. You know, we're now doing things at a much stronger pace. The technology is not the thing that's holding it back. I would agree it's likely the regulation that is going to stop the full rollout of this. But there are countries there that are really looking at implementing this now at speed. They want to be able to differentiate themselves, you know, as a nation, to improve their national prosperity, to increase tourism into their country. And I think therefore very quickly this will be adopted at pace. But regulation is probably the key element that we need to tackle.
And this panel is exactly what is needed, that kind of level of discussion, advocacy in a way as well. So thank you all very much, and I will hand over to Holly.
Yes, thank you so much, Annette, and thank you very much to Jeremy, Mikko, Jens and Ute. Can everyone please give everyone a massive round of applause?